Welcome guys to an episode of Ultra Kill. So today I'm going to tell you that I was about to say Cybergreen sucks, Powerscaling sucks. And well, the reason why is because of the fact that you know that it's a very weird community, and you know when you scale two characters and you do battles between two fan favorite characters, there's often gonna be fandom discourse, or maybe like arguments in chat and toxicity at the same time, because in general anything that has the ability to be argued against would most likely invite toxic people. And I'm not saying the Powerscaling community sucks and it only has toxic people inside of it. That is not really true. There is some good people, respectful people or anything, but 90% of the time some of them might be scaling the characters incorrectly, and that's why I think it kind of sucks. Because power scaling inverse is, I'm fine with it, honestly. You scale the characters inverse, make them fight each other, a hypothetical fight. It's fine, okay? You're scaling using chain scaling, you're doing all the types of scaling to make sure which character can win in the fight, making use of their abilities, and thinking about hypothetical ways they could use their abilities, or maybe knowing more than the creator itself, because sometimes the creator doesn't really think about the fact that the characters can do that. For example, Gege Akutami. I'm just kidding, Gege kind of knows what he's doing. I'm not a writer, I'm not like him, and besides, I suck at making fights in the first place. And honestly, inverse power scaling is nice, inverse fighting is fast, but the problem comes from cross-verse fighting. Just a little bit of a warning, guys, and the next footage is actually very weird, because I forgot to record the actual part, and I had to record that after realizing I didn't record it, so it's now a bit awkward, because most of the video is now out of timeline and the original topic is gone and stuff, so sorry about that. So I guess enjoy the rest of the video. See ya, nerds. Another thing I really hate about cross-verse scaling is that practically cross-verse scaling has a bit of a tangent where, not a tangent, more like a weird thing where both characters' abilities are not compatible, and 90% of the times they can't really be scaled together or fight against each other, or they're like opposites. But that's what makes cross-verse scaling kind of fun to interpret which characters' abilities are more overpowered, which characters can be other characters. But also, like, there's something called equalizing the verse equalization. Basically, like, they have equalization between their own powers, and so they can affect each other. For example, like, because spirits in general and bleach characters, or many characters who can't really be affected by other energy sources, so technically they have to make it fair so they don't win instantly. So they just make it so both of their energies are actually the same. So in technical terms, they don't have a difference in their powers. So yeah, that's what cross-verse scaling is. Basically equalization. But that's also one thing about cross-verse scaling I think I forgot to mention just now, because I'm a nerd. And so, as I'm gonna say, cross-verse scaling is weird because of hexes. Now, that's because equalization happens, but that only happens with with the power source or the power system, not with the hexes. If hexes were equalized, JoJo would get a downgrade in general. Like, because JoJo Bizarre Adventures power scaling requires them to have hexes, so it's kind of getting rid of their main abilities, like the stand abilities. So technically, we can't really get rid of hexes or equalize hexes. The only way we can truly scale hacks is which one is what more hacks in general. And to explain hacks, it's basically a win con. something like somebody, for example, let's say character A can manipulate reality, but they can only output a building level of AP, but they can manipulate reality to a certain extent that it changes entire structure or molecule structure of a specific character, and so that's their win card. But character B can destroy, you know, entire universe or country. So you think character A will win? No, hexes just win because they just have better hacks. They can manipulate the bodily structure. Unless the character B has shown the hacks to resist reality manipulation, then no, he can't win. That's what makes hexes kind of annoying to deal with in the first place, because you know they're just too overpowered, and most of the times they can't really win against that. So that's why hexes are just really overpowered in general, and that's why JoJo's are so dumb, because you know as when I say like Wonder of You is just stupidly overpowered, because you know you can just manipulate logic, and you can't really do anything about it. Most characters can't really do anything about it because they don't have the abilities to just negate that ability. It's really very annoying to deal with hacks characters, because most of the times you can't scale that, you know, energy levels, AP, or destruction capabilities. They just win by hacks. They're getting carried by hacks in general, and that's one thing I really hate about power scaling. It's not that big of a major thing. It's very complicated power scale these things, but the power scaling community just use these things and just say they're absolute, which is really weird in general. So that's maybe one thing, maybe not. It's part of this inverse scaling thing. So that's it. And we're back. So basically, the next topic is actually gonna be the people who scale characters realistically. Now, of course, these people are just generally very weird, because they don't scale characters beyond universal, because they don't believe that multiversal characters exist unless they show multiversal character feats. But how the hell are we gonna draw the multiverse or the universe in general? That's my question. And they use real world science in fiction, which shouldn't really be applied in the first place, just like normal power scaling, where the author doesn't really know what they're talking about, and the people just take it too literally. And there's one nitpick that I don't really like, you know. It's just very weird in general. So I guess, I don't know, man. They're really weird. Now, of course, I think I understand why they decide not to, you know, add real world physics. Is because most of the times they simply cannot believe that these characters can destroy this, and they don't believe statements, and they believe feats instead, which makes sense, of course. It totally makes sense. I mean, sometimes you expect the multiversal destroyer to destroy multiverses and not destroy entire buildings. And it gets really weird scaling these characters that don't show feats that destroy universes or galaxies or anything. So technically I understand where they come from, but it's something called fiction, and we shouldn't apply real world physics. But in their defense, technically it makes sense. They haven't shown the feats, and statements are really inconsistent at times, and most of the times it isn't really consistent with power scaling, because most of the times writers don't prioritize power scaling. They prioritize story and writing. So most of the times we don't know the author's intentions to why they decide to write it that way or anything, because sometimes people just do it because it sounds cool, or they actually apply real world physics, which that's when you should add real world physics, you know. Also, what happened? Never mind. I was wondering what happened to the thing. And now I'm going back on topic here. And my second main reason why I think power scaling sucks, other than the people who add real world physics, is also those people who kind of make characters that shouldn't be universal universal. For example, the character I'm playing, V1, shouldn't really be universal, but these nerds, these filthy, dirt-ridden nerds, wank him or put his high end at universal, which I'm gonna question this, buddy. No, I don't think V1 is universal, because you know we die to things like shotgun bullets. So I don't think we can scale V1 to universal, because you know V1 is a robot that kind of can die to random bullets and stuff. And before you say, well, these technologies are advanced, how the hell are these technologies able to harm God's creation? That doesn't really make sense, not to think of it. And that's why we shouldn't add real world physics into fiction, because nothing really makes sense. Like in general, nothing makes sense. People can't go beyond the speed of light. Bodies can't move beyond the speed of sound before breaking down. So technically, realism shouldn't be applied to fiction, because it's fiction. It's like Superman should abide by the laws of fiction and cannot fly. I mean, to be fair, the first iteration technically was flying, but it's not. He's not really flying. He just jumped really high, which doesn't really make sense. No, think about it. No. Anyhow, so where was I again? All right. The fact that we should add realism while you're floating. That's why we shouldn't add realism in anything. And also, people scale V1 by speedrunning standards. I failed to mention that, but I'm gonna mention that later after I talk about the people who put V1 to universal standards. And because the fact that we're in a fictional world where nothing shouldn't make sense and nothing should be applied, no amount of realism that you can apply to here can make sense or make the world make any sense in general. But to be fair, I can generally understand these nerds why they put stuff like this. Anyhow, so after probably talking about the power scaling, I'm gonna continue with the V1 is universal thing and talk about why that's extremely ridiculous, because we're a robot and we die to bullets and we die to explosions. Like, they're not even that big of a size. Are you gonna scale the explosions to universal? I don't see V1 as universal. And to be fair, this is high ends. These are his high ends. But those are statements. I know I talk about like we shouldn't add real world physics into the what was it called again? Yeah, fiction or games. But we should take into account that statements, Hakida's statements are typically inconsistent, and we shouldn't take it too literally. And when Hakida meant by the prime souls can take on the entirety of heaven, it probably meant the armies of heaven and not destroy heaven itself. Just wipe out the cities and take a lot of armies and men and soldiers to kill them. I think that's what Hakida kind of meant by that. I don't think he meant by V1 can destroy universes because he can scale the prime souls. And even so, prime souls are very in between canon and non-canon. Actually, it's a very weird topic, because we don't know if the prime souls are canon or not 90% of the time. And I'm getting off topic, so that's my second main reason. The people who just make characters universal because of random mistranslation or misinterpretation of characters or their entire statements, which shouldn't be taken literally and probably should talk more about, because authors or writers or Akira himself should have mentioned that. But to be fair, I don't think they shouldn't mention that, because these people are just illiterate. I mean, to be fair, some of them are literate. It's just that they're ranking it really high in consideration, and I can understand that. I respect the grind. I respect the agenda here. Well, there's also one thing I also dislike. Actually, this is the third reason. Okay, biasy. Most power scalers, not all of them, some power scalers rank their characters way too high because they like them better, and this is where the category between pure stupidity and pure absurdity kind of becomes a jump rope, because nothing makes sense in their eyes. Because how the hell does Goku scale to Ultra Verso, even though he can't? He doesn't have the feats. Yeah, you can say he technically has it, but it's so vague. It's so vague, and most of the time I should just scale him to Hyper Verso and stuff, or anything at all. Just please, Ultra Verso should have cosmology of actual legitimate statements and not coming from some random statements from 10 years ago. Please don't do that. But there's also one more, which is agenda scaling, which is actually my favorite type of scaling, because agenda scaling is basically just maintaining the agenda. If you don't know what that means, go look at Jujutsu Kaisen, Jujutsu Folk, Jujutsu Lobotomy Kaisen, or any single weird website about Jujutsu Kaisen, because most of the times that is where the agenda scaling came in. But to be fair, I think Goku fans, DBZ fans, kind of created the agenda scaling with Goku Verso in the first place, and JJK fans kind of profit out of that. Also slandering. The agenda scaling, it has slandering inside of them. You know, as per usual, because you can't push your agenda without slandering the other characters. Okay, you can't do that. It's the part of the law of agenda scaling, because you must slander a character. For example, Megumi. You know, Megumi is famously known in the JJK fandom to be slandered, and I'm getting off topic, aren't I? And we're back. So there's another reason. This is probably the last reason, and you can give your own reason in the comments. So now I'm gonna tell you nerds here real quick, and all of you nerds in the background that I'm playing against, can you be quiet? This is actually really important. Toxicity, okay? There's a reason why power scaling community is kind of somewhat looked down upon, because the toxicity between two different fandoms or two different power scalers that rank their own characters kind of do dumb stuff. For example, not One Piece fans, actually One Punch Man fans, and Dragon Ball fans, because these people would do anything to scale their characters absurdly. Like, as I said before, I've seen some people make Goku Ultra Verso. I mean, the Goku Verso is a joke, and I actually really enjoy it. But everything else is just no. Come on, guys. Come on. It's just not possible. Also, the toxicity is kind of off and off sometimes. Some people are respectful, some people are not. That's just the nature of every fandom. Just like you know, Ultra Kill has the nice fans and the backseaters and the haters and under the mail, you know, the usual. So I guess it's a 50-50, but most of the times I can see why some people are toxic, right? Because most of the times they either get raged by a random comment that shouldn't make sense in general. But please don't be toxic, and please be respectful on the internet, because you'll leave a digital footprint, and some people actually will hack you and take your information and probably would stab you. For example, I think it's CSGO, I'm not sure, but at one point some random nerd would have actually, you know, bullied you. Not bully, more like hack you, DDoS you, and take your information, go to your home, explode that home, and create mass chaos and leak your IP address to the cartel or something. Also, please also be respectful to other people as well, and when they're respectful to you, respect them. If they're not, just ignore them. Just silence them or block them. It's better to block those people who won't listen to, you know, your stuff and will not listen to your arguments. So it's better off to block them instead of arguing with them, because it's clearly shown they're not, you know, listening. So it's better off to just ignore them, of course. That's my main tip. I mean, it's not a major reason why we should hate power scaling, because we need to know, everyone needs to know, power scaling is a tale old as mankind itself, because every time mankind has already scaled characters, they see who is strongest. They'll scale themselves. They'll showcase who would win, who would not, stuff. But of course, now we're going to a more weirder category with the toxicity. Is when people genuinely wank their characters and do dumb stuff and just troll. These people, as I said, just ignore them like the haters they are, so they don't get the engagement they want, which their parents didn't give, like an orphan, which that means I must stab them because that's part of my job, okay? I stab orphans. That's why you guys don't have parentless behavior, so you guys can't, do some parentless behavior, because you guys can't, because I stab people who have no parents, aka orphans. So yeah, just be respectful when it comes to power scaling, and also just be reminded that other people have their own opinions and you should probably respect them. I know it's a bit weird that I'm talking about this, because genuinely I want to do something. It's called making sure the internet has a intelligence, because in general, when you are power scaling, it's very dumb, because sometimes the statements are wrong, sometimes the feeds are a bit off, or maybe your calculations might be a tad bit off, and if that's the case, you should probably listen or debunk or anything. But in general, we should just do one thing as a normal human being, and it's to respect everybody, okay? We should just respect everybody. If you can't do that one basic rule, you don't deserve the internet or the access, okay? Even though you kind of do, it's kind of the right of everybody, but you all should calm down and chillax and everything. So I guess that's the only thing I want to take away here. That's all for the video, nerds. If you liked the video, like and subscribe. If you hated my video, like and subscribe. Yep, you should do that. Totally. Just like and subscribe, and totally watch my other videos. And you should subscribe to me and only me. Unsubscribe to everybody. I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. But maybe. Come on. You can do it. I believe in you. I think. I don't know, man. I've been disappointed in humanity a very long time. Anyhow, like and subscribe, nerds. And that's all for the video. Power scaling sucks, and I'm never doing power scaling ever again. And no, I'm not scaling a character because I'm dumb and I don't do my research, and I'll definitely get that wrong. And some person in the comments will say I'm wrong, and I'll be there, you're factually correct, and they might be wrong, and I don't even know. Anyhow, that, as I said, that's all for the video, nerds. Like and subscribe. If you don't like the video, like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.